Anti-Semitism. Upon hearing the word, most people think of a single name. Yet, this is a dangerous oversimplification. Anti-Semitism is not a single face, but a way of thinking that affects masses regardless of time or nation. Moreover, it is not a uniform phenomenon. It has different levels that cannot be judged by the same standard. In this video, through the example of anti-Semitism, it will be shown how hatred can be elevated to the highest level and how it can be directed specifically against certain groups. There is an enormous difference between the various degrees of hate speech. One may lead to exclusion, while another may lead to extermination. To demonstrate this, 19th and 20th century British anti-Semitism will be compared with Nazi anti-Semitism. By the 19th century in Great Britain, the largest colonial empire of the time, politics gradually became more than mere governance. It transformed into metapolitics. Power no longer meant only institutions, but the almost religious mission of the people, even of the race. Meanwhile, new disciplines such as folk psychology reinforced the idea of the Volksgeist, the national spirit. Since the era relied on the authority of science, racism also assumed the scientific form. It spoke in the language of Darwinism and eugenics. By this time, the consciousness of Anglo-Saxon Germanic origins was already strong in England. The English saw themselves as the heirs of the Teutonic tribes and interpreted freedom, loyalty, and honesty as innate racial virtues. History thus gradually became a racial myth, a narrative form which other peoples were simply excluded. Knox believed that every race possesses its own civilization. Therefore, in his view, a unified European civilization could not exist. He did not proclaim a single superior Aryan race, but two, the Saxons and the Slavs. Non-white peoples, however, he considered fundamentally inferior, believing them by nature destined for slavery. For him, the true internal enemy became the Jew. He attacked Jews not only in political or social terms, but also on an aesthetic level. He saw them in the antithesis of the perfect man. He contrasted the harmonious human ideal of Greek sculpture precisely with the Jewish figure, as a negative mirror image. Knox denied Jews every quality he regarded as valuable. In contrast, he portrayed the Aryan bourgeoisie as the bearer of the discipline and moral purity. English racism and anti-Semitism were primarily based on colonial hierarchy and eugenics. They did not become an all-encompassing ideology that mobilized society as a whole, as happened in Germany. Jews were portrayed as an inferior race and were treated with contempt. In Hitler's conception, however, the Jews were assigned an entirely different role. At the Führer headquarters, after dinner in the evenings, he would often speak at length. He freely elaborated on his thoughts. These monologues later became known under the title Hitler's Table Talk. He frequently expressed how deeply he admired the ancient world. When he came to power, he attempted to recreate this world. He regarded the strength, order, subjugation of peoples, and technical achievements of the Roman Empire as ideals. Hitler attributed the decline to Christianity. He believed that with the fall of the ancient order, world history had taken a wrong turn. According to him, Christianity was the forerunner of Bolshevism. He claimed that Jews who had become Christians mobilized the masses of slaves against the state, thereby undermining order. According to Hitler, Jesus had risen up against the destructive materialism of his age, a phenomenon he associated with the Jews. The responsibility, however, he placed on the Apostle Paul. He called him a cunning Jew, and, as the founder of the Christian Church, saw in him the spiritual forerunner of communism. Within this worldview, Jewry was no longer merely a minority, nor simply an inferior race. It appeared as the hidden driving force of history, as a power transcending nations, capable of mobilizing masses and bringing down empires. When Hitler came to power, the idea became a program. The process of making Germany and later all of Europe Judenrein, that is, Tree of Jews, began. He did not translate his worldview into political reality all at once, but step by step. Measures taken against the Jews were usually preceded by the deliberate incitement of public opinion. From boycotts and the deprivation of rights, the process advanced to the Nuremberg laws, and then to the Aryanization of the economy, which meant the complete exclusion of Jews from professions and economic life. Later, the Yellow Star was introduced. Their property was confiscated, their movement was restricted, and deportations began. The essential difference between the two conceptions was that traditional European antisemitism was hierarchical. Nazism, however, did not place them below but above, as those who stand behind everything, who control and influence events. But why is it important to understand this? Because one of the strongest tools for holding a community together is hatred. Yet, it matters how that hatred is constructed. The most intense hatred does not develop toward those who are despised, but toward those who are feared. If the enemy is portrayed as powerful, organized, and threatening, as something before which we are merely tiny points, then fear can easily turn into collective rage. And if the possibility of retaliation is added to this, hatred becomes an extraordinarily effective political instrument.